Yes. All right. Well, I am super excited that you have joined me for today's workshop called The Hustle. This is a workshop to help you understand what is really behind burnout and how to beat it for good. So, my name is Aisha Cremine, and since this workshop is really not about me and it is all about you, we're going to jump right into it. I imagine you were here in most cases. One, because maybe you are exhausted. You feel like you are burning the candle at both ends and you just are feeling depleted. Maybe you feel like you can't catch up or you are always behind no matter how hard you work. Or maybe you're here because you feel like you have nothing left to give. The only reason why I know these bullets and I put these bullets here because at some point, that's the way I felt. Like I have felt like I was burning the candle at both ends, but no matter how hard I tried, that I was always like barely keeping up with all the things and sometimes not even keeping up with all the things. So if you are here for any one of these reasons, then you are in the right place. I would also say that deep down, underneath those feelings of exhaustion, of depletion, of like always going and going and doing, is this question of like, what is wrong with me? Right. And that's a hard question to kind of put out in the atmosphere. So it might strike a chord. If this question doesn't come up for you, if it's not the question that's underneath for you, great. Um, I'm going to tell you how I know that that question is one that comes up for me when we are having this conversation around burnout or around hustle or around overwhelm and exhaustion. Because 2 hours ago, one of the things about me as a coach is the way that I learn the things that I support my people with is as a coach, I am called to go first for better or worse, right? And what I mean by that is this gift that I have to walk alongside people on their journey to being their best, bravest selves means that I need to have experience walking my own journey towards being my best and bravest self. And that means I go through the hard stuff just like everybody else. And sometimes I go through it ahead of people so that I can let the people know who are walking with me what it feels like. So 2 hours ago, in preparation for this session and some other things that I have coming up on the horizon, I was beating myself up at the kitchen table. And I got on the phone with my coach and I was like, I just feel like I had all this time to do the work that I needed to do, and I didn't use it. I had all the tools and all the time I needed, and yet I still could not catch up. And in our conversation, ultimately what came out was, I don't feel like I'm being a good steward of my resources. What's wrong with me? Surely others do not feel like this. And by the end of our conversation, it was so clear that I was going through that lesson so that I could be fully prepared to share this message with you in this moment. There is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. You are just caught up in the hustle. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I am inviting you to go on this journey with me to, to be open to what is here for you, to learn, to grow. My commitment to you is that by the end of our time today in this session, you will understand what is really behind your burnout so that you can become more aware, so that you can begin to accumulate the tools so that you can beat burnout for good. And so you can believe. And when I say believe, I mean truly believe deep down in here that there is not a single thing that is wrong with you, that you do not have to hustle, you do not have to prove, that you have everything you need. And the only thing that would like serve you a bit better is this awareness and maybe some support to walk alongside you on the journey. So I am truly glad you are here. My deepest desire for you is that you learn something that makes your journey lighter. So let's get into it. Let's talk about burnout. There we go. Let's talk about burnout. And when we think about burnout, we often associate it with feelings of overwhelm and exhaustion and depletion, and when you were out of alignment. And for clarity, when I say out of alignment, it means that somehow you are working against yourself. Somehow, how you are showing up in the world, it doesn't feel right for you. Like something just feels off. So that's what I mean when I say out of alignment. And when we have so much of that, we feel like we are on the edge of burnout, right? And so what do? We are like, oh, we're going to take a vacation. I need some days off, right? I'm tired. I've got nothing left to give. If I take a girls getaway, or if I get away with my guys, if I go play golf, if I just, turn on my email autoresponder and I have less things coming at me, then I'll feel less overwhelmed. I'll feel less exhausted. I'll feel less out of alignment. I'll feel less depleted. How does that work out for us? Like, how does that work out for you? Like, does it work when you take a few days off and then you go right back into work? I know that when I was working in a nonprofit and I was like burning the candle on both ends, I would take a couple of days off and I'd go back to work and I'd feel like I never left. Like the work just grew and that I was having to work twice as hard because I had taken that time off. We often think that rest is the solution for burnout, right? If you look at articles, if you Google articles on burnout, you'll see that like we need to support like people taking rest, and rest is good. However, rest does not pull us off of the iceberg of burnout. It might take us farther from the peak, right? Like we might be up here, like the peak of burnout is up here. And maybe when we take a break, we go a little bit down the iceberg, but we're still on it, right? That's rest. That's what rest does for us. So when we go back to work after these days off and we've taken this rest, we start to have other feelings. We start to have feelings of like resentment. Like we begin to resent the job. We begin to resent the people who are asking things of us on top of our overwhelm, who are asking us to do things on top of our exhaustion. And it breeds resentment, it breeds judgment, it breeds anger. And it's at that point that we say something's got to change, right? Like we have hit the top of the iceberg. We are done. Something has got to give. Right? This is a different level of exhaustion, right? We've added on these heavier feelings of judgment, anger, and resentment. And so something's got to change. And when we talk about change, this doesn't just apply to our work, right? Like, yes, we might need to change jobs. Maybe we're like, you know what? I am working really hard in this relationship. And I've tried to give and I've tried to, give and take. I've tried to take a break. I've tried to relax my expectations a little bit, but this relationship isn't working. So maybe I need to change partners, right? Or maybe I need to change the role that I'm in my job, right? Some change has to happen. When we are talking about burnout, know that this isn't just limited to our work. Like we can experience burnout in multiple areas of our lives. We can experience burnout in our parenting, in our partnering, in our jobs. Let's think of burnout as not limited in that way, right? So we've got to make a change. And then, so we do that, right? We change jobs. We're like, whew, I got away from that boss. Whew, I got away from that coworker who I was harboring anger and resentment towards. Whew, I got away from that partner, that spouse, that sibling, that mother. I've gotten change. And that change feels good to us, right? It feels good because now it's like the iceberg is lower. We've even got some nice trees down here. And I put the trees in because I was like, ooh, maybe there's like more money at the new job. Things are looking brighter. This is wonderful, right? We're like, yes, we have solved the burnout problem. Done. Not quite. Because then we start to feel some of those same feelings we felt before. We start getting seeds of that overwhelm in the new job. We start seeing signs of exhaustion in the new relationship. We start feeling those feelings of depletion, of like overextending ourselves in the new role. This cycle of like moving up the iceberg and then going back down and moving back up the iceberg, this cycle is what I call the hustle. This cycle of getting close to being back to our energy source and then being depleted all over again. And this happens because rest attempts to address the symptoms of burnout. Rest does not address the source of burnout. What we see on the surface, the exhaustion, the out of alignment, the depletion, the judgment, the resentment, the frustration, those are symptoms. And we try to treat that with vacations, days off, a girl's getaway, autoresponder, trying to set some clear boundaries, when in fact, there's a whole mess of an iceberg underneath. And that's the thing we need to address if we are truly going to banish burnout for good. Burnout is the symptom. What we need to do is to identify and treat the source. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So then the question becomes like, what's underneath there? Like, what is the thing that is driving our burnout? What is the thing that is causing us truly to have these feelings that keep us up at night, or that make us crash into bed because we've got nothing else to give, right? What are those things? Answering this question gives us the opportunity to identify what is really getting in the way of us showing up as our best selves and doing our best work, right? If you can address what is underneath your burnout, what are the things that truly deplete your energy? What are the things that pull you out of alignment? In addressing those things, you can then say, oh, this is what's causing this discontent, this dis-ease. Let's address this and stop in this hustle cycle, right? So this is the opportunity we have in identifying and becoming more aware of what is driving our own hustle. My hunch is that we all want three things, right? We want alignment, which is the belief that who we are as we are in this moment is enough. That alignment means we are clear on our values. And I think of alignment as is when your head, heart, hands, and mouth are all saying and doing the same things, right? Alignment comes when what you think, what you believe, what you do, and what you say are all one, right? It's a separate conversation. Alignment is really at the core of who we are. So oftentimes, if you feel like I'm in a job and I don't really jive with the work that I'm doing, I feel like there's more I could be doing. Normally you are there because there's some misalignment, like there's some out of sync between your values and the work you are doing. But for now, we're not going to get into that. So we want three things. One, we want alignment, which is rooted in the belief that who we are in the moment we are is enough. We also want impact. We want to know that what we have to contribute, what we are gifted to do is received and is enough, right? Like I don't have to shave off who I am to make an impact or to make a difference. If I show up in full, just the way I am, with all of my flaws, with my imperfections, with my curiosities, with my wonderings, all of that, just as I am, is enough. Like that contribution is exactly right, right? And the third thing we want is sustainability. We want to know that we can give our best, be our best in a way that maintains our energy, that allows us to continue to do it at a pace that doesn't exhaust us, right? Like it's like, I can do these things and always have gas in the tank, right? And I can do this in a way that always allows me to have gas in the tank. We want those three things. In order to get these things, we have to know what is expected of us. That's the clarity that comes from alignment. We have to feel safe, which is courage, and that courage ties into sustainability. And we have to feel confident in our ability to deliver, and that ties to impact. We have to have those three things in any area of our lives, whether it is in your relationship. We have to know what is expected of us in our relationships. We have to feel safe to speak up about things that feel good to us and things that don't. And we have to feel confident in our ability to deliver on what's expected of us. That's in our relationships, that is in our parenting, that is in our roles at work. I like to include parenting in this, one, because I'm a parent, and two, because parenting is one of the places where we hustle the most, because we didn't get a guidebook for what an effective parent looks like. And so sometimes the clarity around what's expected of us is not there. And in the absence of that clarity, we are not confident in our ability to deliver. And that pulls us into the hustle, right? We're going to talk about those three C's in just a moment. When we do not have any one of those things, alignment, impact, sustainability, when we do not have clarity, confidence, or courage, we enter the hustle. So at this point, you should be wondering, like, okay, so what exactly is the hustle? Here it is. The hustle is when we act and make decisions out of the belief that we cannot deliver at the level expected. When we are missing one of the three things, clarity about what's expected, confidence in our ability to deliver, or courage to advocate for one or both, we enter the hustle. I will sometimes say that, like, the hustle, when we are moving in hustle energy, we are trying to prove ourselves. We are trying to prove that we are enough. We are trying to prove that we belong, right? So hustle energy is this proving energy, and proving comes from a belief that we actually are not enough. When you know that you're enough, you don't have to prove anything, right? So this is the hustle, when we act and make decisions out of a belief that we cannot deliver at the level that is expected, right? So we put it another way, this is what it looks like. I actually drew these out on a Post-it one day. This was so funny. I have my little green Post-its. I'm gonna hold it up here. I was like, how do I, like, put this into words? And so this presentation was born out of Post-its. But another way, it looks like this. So burnout is at the top of the iceberg, and we tend to try to address these, right? These are the symptoms of burnout. When in fact, the things that we need to address are the things that are driving burnout, the things that are underneath the iceberg. And that would be the lack of clarity, the lack of confidence, and the lack of courage. Those things lead to people pleasing, perfectionism, and overperforming. Those are all proving energy kinds of things. That's hustle energy, right? The lack of clarity, when you don't know what's expected, you will overperform, and try to do all the things so that you don't miss delivering on the thing that you think people want from you. How exhausting does that sound? Right? When you don't have the confidence, you will puff up to make yourself feel big so that you look like you have it all together. And you will say, oh, this has got to be perfect. I got to make sure it's perfect so people see that I have all my stuff together. And that leads to depletion. And then the lack of courage is the lack of willingness to ask for help. Right? And that lack of willingness to ask for help is like, I don't want to be seen as not having it all together. So I'm going to take on all the responsibilities. And that leads to people pleasing. It's saying yes and crossing your boundaries. It's saying yes when you don't have capacity, right? And then you look crazy because you're all over the place, right? You see how these things underneath here are actually the things that we need to address if we are going to take down the iceberg of burnout, right? If we're going to exit the hustle cycle. Let me give you an example. Recently, I was invited to lead a session, this session actually, for Rice University Center for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Leadership. And this was the first time that I was presenting to this type of group. And so naturally, I didn't know what the expectations were. Like I didn't, they sent an email and said, oh, would you please send us your slides and a handout that we can give to the people who come to your session. Now, if I was not in my hustle energy, I would have said, sure, can you send me an example of what this handout should look like? Can you send me an example of what other people have sent? But I didn't have the courage to do that, nor did I have the clarity about what was expected. And so let me tell you what happened. I missed the first deadline because I was like trying to figure it all out on my own. And then I sent them an email and said, hey, can you give me a little more time? I want to make sure this looks right. What I was really saying was, I need some more time so that I can make sure this is perfect. So nobody recognizes that I don't know what the expectation is. I'm going to over deliver. Right. And that came because I did not have the clarity. What I could have done is simply asked for an example of what others have submitted. But because I did not want to be seen as not enough, because I didn't want my lack of clarity to be misinterpreted as lack of ability, it pulled me into hustle mode. Like I went into overperforming. And then I had a whole bad attitude about it, right? I was staying up all night trying to put together a handout that, quite frankly, I was spending 2 times as much energy, all because I didn't have the clarity, and it pulled me into my hustle energy, right? How many times have you not known what was fully expected and then gotten frustrated because you didn't know? And then you spent all this time trying to produce what you thought people wanted. And then you turned it in and they were like, oh, you did so much more than you had to, right? You're contributing to that burnout because of a lack of clarity, right? You see how that line goes together? Because I didn't have the clarity I needed in that moment, it sent me into a tailspin. I was sitting at the kitchen table telling myself, like, I should know this. I should have known better. If I had planned earlier, then I would have been able to ask that question. I'm not going to ask them now because then they think I'm not good enough or that they made a wrong choice in choosing me to lead this session. And in this moment, I am now working against my mental energy, right? When we don't have the clarity, our brain starts to spin stories. And it's really intended to protect us, right? Like it's protective energy. It's like, I don't know how to do this. My brain is like, oh, see, you should have done this beforehand. Oh, are you really good enough? This is what I call my gremlins, but I'm doing this over here, right? Like this is the mental energy. So now, in addition to trying to create this slide deck, in addition to trying to create this handout, I am battling my gremlins. This is making me work twice as hard. So I'm trying to get the thing done. I'm battling my mental energy. And now I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that I am having to work here and here. And now I've engaged my emotional response. So now I've got self-judgment, fear, anger, frustration, the gremlin, and I'm still trying to get the thing done. That sounds like a recipe for burnout to me, right? This is how understanding what is driving the burnout and addressing that thing keeps you from fighting the mental energy, and it keeps you from fighting the emotional energy that comes from what's underneath your burnout, right? Not knowing is what catapults us into this shame spiral, like that feeling of, I should have done this. I knew better. Why wasn't I able to? Brene Brown calls that the shame spiral. Like when you enter that gremlin talking, that emotional weight, and you're trying to do the thing, that's a shame spiral. I call that onset imposter syndrome, right? It's like the beginning of imposter syndrome. We talk about imposter syndrome as like being found out. This is the onset of it. This is what it looks like at the very beginning, right? And we rarely talk about this part. Not knowing, that lack of clarity catapults us into the hustle, right? This is why burnout disproportionately affects certain demographics. Some of us are the first. When you are the first to do something, when you are the first person in your family to graduate from college, when you are the first person to start a business in your family, when you are the first at something, there's a lot you don't know. There's a lot of clarity you don't have. And so you are already on track for the hustle, right? Like you are putting yourself in a new environment where you will not know all of the things. And that you can either look at as a doorway to the hustle, or you can see it as a doorway to the opportunity to get the clarity you need, right? This also means that like, and when I say like you're the first to do something, this also includes like whether you are in a new position. Maybe you're not the first person to do the thing, but this is the first time you are doing it, right? If this is the first time you are speaking in front of a large crowd, if this is the first time you are hosting a retreat, if this is the first time you are leading a team of people, you feel like you are playing a game and you don't know the rules. And you don't want to be found out. And so rather than ask for the clarity you need, you go into that hustle proving energy, right? This also, like, I think about, like, I was reading the other day that there's some stat around women being disproportionately affected by burnout. And that's because when you look at those things in the bottom, like the lack of clarity, the people pleasing, the perfectionism, the overperforming, like a lot of those things society has positioned us to do, because at some point we were the women who shattered the glass ceiling. If you're the woman who is shattering the glass ceiling and doing something different, you are playing by a new set of rules that you've not been privy to. And then for some of us who are multiple things, like I am a first. I'm the first in my family to graduate from college. I am a first. I'm the first one to start a business and work in it full time. I am a first in a lot of things. I am a woman. I am a Black woman. Like, holy smokes, I have all of the ingredients for hustle, right? So Black burnout and the hustle disproportionately affects certain demographics. That just is what it is. And sometimes we've been taught, for example, I grew up learning that, like, Black people have to work 10 times as hard to get half as far as like a white person. That hustle, that prove mentality, that proving orientation was a seed that was planted in me when I was a kid. And sometimes we have to let those things go if we are not going to get caught up in hustle and burn ourselves out, right? Maybe it worked for our parents and our parents' parents, but it is not working for us. And if you want something different, then we have to address different things and we have to let certain things go. So here are the three things: clarity, confidence, and courage. If we have those three things, it can keep us from the hustle, which is the root of burnout. And we've talked a lot about clarity on this side. So I want to talk a little bit about confidence. Confidence comes when we know that our innate skills and strengths overlap with what's expected, right? Like, I am confident when I show up to something and who I am in the moment I am is enough. Right? In order to get to that place, though, I have to know what my innate skills and strengths are. Right? When I know what my skills and strengths are, then I am confident to show up in those strengths. One of the challenges that this presents for us is that many of us have been told that, like, looking at our strengths, identifying what we're good at, is selfish. That only self-interested people do that. That we don't lead with our strengths. And what it's caused us to do is to play down or be unaware of what we bring to the table. We play down the things that we are naturally good at. We kind of go, oh, those things, yeah, I'm really good at that, but that's not a big deal. I should focus on the places where I am not strong and get better. That's like having all the ingredients for like the best cake and choosing to make something else because the cake would be easy. Right? So part of what we have to do if we are going to address the hustle by addressing our lack of confidence is take inventory of the things we are killer at, the things maybe we have taken for granted over our entire lifetime, right? We need to know where we excel, where are our natural gifts, because those things that are natural to us do not take work for us to use. Right? Some of us are working really hard because we've set our strengths over in the corner and we are spending all of our time trying to do things that we are naturally gifted to do, that we are not naturally gifted to do, right? We want to make sure our contribution is aligned with our strengths. You can do a lot of things. I can do a lot of things. I am like multi-talented. That is not coming from a place of arrogance. It is just legit. I can do a lot of things. Like I can build websites, I can create marketing documents, I can speak, I can do a lot of things. But that does not mean that I can do all of the things with the same level of ease and energy. Confidence is where you can utilize your innate strengths and it be exactly what people need, and you can do it with ease. Some of us are struggling in our work and in our relationships because we are trying to use strengths that wear us down to use. Things that pull us out of our zone of genius have the potential to drain our confidence and pull us into hustle. Let me give you an example. I'm a visionary leader, right? If you look at my strengths finder, I am all in the relationship people part. My execution skills, not my first strength. Can I do them? Yes. I can spend time in an Excel document. I can put together a pretty spiffy looking Google Sheets. I can do those things, but the energy that it takes for me to do it, I will procrastinate on it. It will take me forever to do because it is not my first strength. Some of us are in jobs where we are spending our time in things that are not our first strengths. And because it takes us so long to do, because we procrastinate on it, it drains our confidence. And we feel like we are not doing a good job. You're not procrastinating because you are lazy. You are not delaying things because you are lazy and you don't have your timing together. You are procrastinating because you are doing things that are not in your first strengths, and it is draining your energy. Right? So then what do you do in those situations? I partner I have somebody on my team who works with me, and I'm like, she is a beast at all the execution things. I partner with her so she can live in her lane and utilize her first strengths, and so that I can stay in my zone of genius and use my first strengths. Those things build my confidence because I'm just showing up as Aisha, and it's like, oh, showing up as Aisha works and it's easy. This is it. For her, showing up as herself and doing all of the operation, implemental, budget, spreadsheet stuff, she loves that. And because she loves it, she excels at it. And that makes confidence deposits for her, right? So one of the things you want to check, it's like, do I have the clarity I need? Am I doing things that make confidence deposits for me? Or am I doing things that make confidence withdrawals for me, right? Is it bolstering your energy or is it draining your energy, right? And then finally, it's courage. When you don't have the clarity of expectations, when you are not doing things that are in your zone of genius and making confidence deposits in you, you will need courage to advocate and ask for what you need. If you do not have that courage, you will sit and stew in that lack of clarity that will catapult you into overperforming. If you do not have courage, You will say yes to all the things because you feel like you need to people please. If you do not have courage, you are almost like the absence of courage is almost the thing that makes the iceberg at the bottom grow. The impact, when you think about like alignment, impact, and sustainability, the impact you seek to make is rooted in your courage, in your willingness to ask, in your willingness to not know, and to seek out the clarity that you want. These three things, clarity, confidence, and courage, are at the root of you solving your burnout problem for good. In the absence of having those three, or in the absence of being found out, in the absence of not having the courage to show up in our vulnerability, we muscle through a lack of clarity. We're just gonna power through it. We'll figure it out. We're gonna muscle through. We muscle through our lack of confidence. Okay, I'm gonna get it together. I'm gonna look like I have it all together. And not only am I gonna look like I have it all together, but I'm gonna unintentionally encourage other people to look like they have it all together, to look like they have it all figured out. And what ends up happening is we start regarding this exhaustion that we have as like a badge of honor. It's almost like burnout. You're managing your burnout so well. You look so good with it. But then we go home and we collapse. And it's like, I got to have a glass of wine. I need a drink. I love beverages. So this is not like a condemnation on drinking. But what we want to do is we want to live our lives with ease. We want to be able to contribute in alignment. We want to know that who we are, as we are in this moment, is enough. We want to make the impact. We want to know that our presence makes a positive contribution and is received. And we want to know that we can deliver that in a sustainable way. Like, I am here for the long haul. I say all the time, when I go to the grave, I want to be spent. I want to know that I made a difference. I did it in a way that allowed me to be the parent I want to be, the partner I want to be, the boss I want to be, where I get to make the impact. And I got to do it all by just being myself. There's no burnout in that because there's no hustle in that, right? The hustle is all about, if you're like, well, what are the signs that I might see if I am in the hustle? If I am on the way to burnout, what are the things I can look for that are underneath the surface that you want to address? Perfectionism. It's trying to prove to ourselves that we know. Like when you are perfecting and oh, this has to be right. What you are doing is you're I'm trying to prove to myself that I do know what I'm doing. There's something underneath there. That's something that you don't know that is driving that perfectionism. You pull up that little slide with the mountain or the iceberg, figure out, is it a lack of clarity? Is it a lack of confidence? Or is it a lack of courage here, right? People pleasing is saying yes so that we look like we know. Are you oh, yeah, I can take that on. Sure, I'll stay after hours and put together that PowerPoint. Oh, of course I'll show up on a Saturday. No, it's totally fine to call me at 8 p.m. That's so we look like we know what we're doing to other people. And then we hang up the phone and we're right? Hustle, right? Overperforming is trying to prove to others that we know. I'm the first Black that you've ever hired in this role. I got to get in here. I got to be the first one in, the last one out the door. I got to make sure that everything I turn in is perfect. I'm going to over deliver. I'm going to over deliver so you see that you made the right choice in hiring me. While on the surface, you might get a lot done. Underneath, you are burning the candle at both ends. And what happens is we harbor resentment, judgment, and frustration. And then we're like, we got to be out of here. This place is not ripe for us to contribute ourselves. I can't be here and work in sustainability in any sustainable way, right? And in some cases, our jobs do have unrealistic expectations of us. 9 times out of 10, it's because the people who are in leadership in those places had to hustle to get where they are. And so they've come to believe that hustle is required, right? Like there are some sectors, the legal sector, like law firms, the nonprofit sector, like there's an expectation that you give and give and give because that's just required to make the impact we want to make. And it will not be until someone in leadership says, actually, what's causing that hustle is a lack of clarity around expectations. What's causing people to burn out and feel like they have to be martyrs in this role is like a lack of confidence, right? The culture in our organizations, those cultures that facilitate and harbor and like breed burnout can be traced to those 3 C's, whether it's confidence, clarity, or courage in their people. That's another discussion for another day. So the question for you is like, what's behind your burnout? Like, what is driving you up the burnout iceberg? Is it a lack of clarity? Is it a lack of confidence? Is it a lack of courage? Like, what is pulling you into this hustle energy? And how does hustle show up for you? Does it show up in people pleasing? I can tell you, my hustle energy is overperforming. It's like frantic overperforming. And I know that when it happens, it's like, oh, I'm like in my hustle energy. And I can stop for a second. And then I'll ask myself, what do I need to know that I don't know to get me out of this energy? Right? I will start like picking up things. I'm like, okay, I have a session that I need to prep for. I'm about to walk out the door. What could I possibly need? I almost always grab a book. I'm like, I surely need this book. I don't need the book. That is just me like grabbing for something so that I can like feel secure in myself walking in the door. And I will take a breath and I'll go, Aisha, what is underneath this in this moment? And most of the time for me, it's not a lack of clarity. It's a lack of confidence in that moment, right? It's like, am I really enough to go in and deliver and help people have the transformation I want to help them have as I am right now? And that's the question I have to ask myself. This is not like, there's no like silver bullet. It's not like I'm going to give you a like, oh, what this is about is awareness, right? Like now you can ask yourself, what's driving that? And then you can begin to cultivate tools so that 1, you can recognize it. 2, tools and support. I have a coach. I will reach out to my coach and be like, this is what I'm feeling. And he will help me move through. He's like, okay, so what's the worst that could happen? It totally bombs. And then what? And then I'll come home and be like, well, I need to fix that because that can't happen again. So you will have still learned something if it bombs. Yes. Okay. Right? But you cannot begin to solve what you have not yet diagnosed. And this session is all about giving you the tools to diagnose what is really behind your burnout so that you can begin to build a plan and a toolbox for how you will address it. So, what is behind your burnout? And let's talk about what you can do about it. I'd never introduced myself, or I didn't at the beginning of the session, but I will tell you, my name is Aisha Grumbine. And I am a life and leadership coach. I don't know if I love those terms. What I really think I do is like, I walk alongside people while they do their most important work. Like for people who are really trying to be intentional about living a life that they are over the moon about and having tools to walk through the hard parts with courage, seeking clarity and confidence. I'm like your friend with a flashlight. Maybe that's how I'll introduce myself. Anyway, that is what I do. And if you are on the edge of burnout, or if you are realizing that you want to do life better, that you want to do life lighter, then let's talk.